Please call the CEO. The CEO here is Sean Sanders. I repeated my husband's name, Sean. However, the receptionist looked confused and responded, "There's no one by that name here." Huh? I couldn't understand what was happening. At that moment, I heard a voice from behind me. "Is a jealous pauper here to disrupt our business?" I turned around and saw Tracy with a mocking smile on her face. At that instant, a terrible thought raced through my mind. Why isn't Sean here? And why is Tracy here? But from the look on Tracy's face, it was clear she knew something. If Tracy had orchestrated all of this, it would be unforgivable. If she was just teasing me, I could still laugh it off. But what happened yesterday was beyond acceptable. It's not something society can tolerate. I clenched my hands tightly with all my strength. My name is Virginia Sanders. I'm 28 years old, working as a clerk in a small company. I've been with the company for 10 years since I graduated high school, and I'm quite attached to it. However, a few months ago, I planned to quit my job. The reason is I got married. But my husband, Sean, had just started his own company. Our income was unstable, and we didn't have much savings. So, I reluctantly decided to continue working. Of course, I believe in Sean. But it's not like I'm without worries. Sean often doesn't come home because he's so busy with work. And the money he brings home is very little. If we work hard now, we'll surely be happy someday, right? I dream of those happy days and continue to work hard every day. The reason I long for such happy days is partly because of the environment I grew up in. That said, my family wasn't unhappy. In fact, I think I was happy. But not everyone feels the same way I do. I've actually been teased like this before. Your family is a single-parent household, right? Yes, but what about it? Then you must be poor. That's why you always wear dirty clothes. My classmate, Tracy, laughed out loud. I was furious. Yes, we're a single-parent household, but we're not poor. My mom has a good job. My dad died of an illness when I was young. So it's true that my family was a single-parent household. But my mom worked as a full-time employee at an insurance company, and I had a part-time job after school. We didn't have an abundance, but we weren't struggling either. However, many people think like Tracy. Even after high school, I've been told the same thing many times. Each time, I denied it. We're not struggling. I am happy. How many times have I repeated those words? Eventually, I started to wonder if I was truly happy. Surface-level relationships were fine, but I avoided deep connections. Deep relationships inevitably lead to discussions about family. I decided to just go along with everyone else. That way, I could live peacefully. In the end, I continued my adult life with only superficial relationships. But living like that, I couldn't make trusted friends or find a partner. On the other hand, like everyone else, I also want to get married and be happy. The conflict continued inside me. It was during such a time. As I was about to stop by a convenience store on my way back from work, a stranger called out to me. "Excuse me, may I ask you something?" "Around here." Listening to the man, it seemed he was looking for a building where his client's office was located. But it wasn't a particularly complicated area. With a map on his mobile phone, he should be able to find it. I tilted my head but displayed the surrounding map on my phone. "Well, here's the current location," I explained politely, pointing out directions. Before long, the man seemed to understand the way. "Oh, I see. Thank you very much." "No, it's nothing." "Oh, wait a moment. I'm actually..." The man handed me a business card. It had Sean Sanders written on it.
Mr. Sanders? What? The CEO?
Yes, I run an IT company. That was my first encounter with Sean. After that, he invited me to dinner as a thank you. Usually, I would have declined. But he kept bowing his head, so I couldn't refuse. Reluctantly, I ended up going to dinner with Sean. But during that dinner, I found myself liking Sean. Maybe because his attitude didn't change even after hearing that I grew up in a single-parent household. Did you have a tough time growing up? People often asked that question. But Sean didn't mind. He talked about his hobbies and other personal stories. I found that comforting. In retrospect, people around me were just worried about me. But I didn't realize it. I might have become twisted after the incident with Tracy. Anyway, I feel I did something wrong to those around me. From now on, I will face people around me sincerely. Meeting Sean made me feel that way. That was about 2 years ago. After that, I started dating Sean. He was the one who gave me a chance to change. I wanted to cherish my relationship with Sean. That's why I was dating him with marriage in mind. However, when I introduced Sean to my mom, she didn't seem to be pleased.
I'm not against your relationship, but think carefully before getting married.
That's all she said. I didn't know what she didn't like about Sean. Maybe she's worried because I just started my company? Is that so? If we work hard together, she'll understand. Let's wait to get married until then. Mom's opposition made me feel we couldn't get married. That feeling grew stronger. But I didn't want to get married by going against Mom's wishes. How long should I think about it? I kept worrying alone. It's not something I could easily consult others about. I wished I had a close friend at times like these. I should have been more social. Sean was the only person I could talk to. But Sean was often busy with work and rarely home. Sometimes, I want to talk face to face instead of on the phone.
Sorry, work is really busy. I'm staying overnight at the office again today.
When can we meet next? Sean was silent at my words. No answer was coming. I understand he's busy with work, but I also want him to value me. I puffed out my cheeks, thinking that. It was at that time. Because of my work schedule, I can't promise when we can meet. So, how about we live together?
Live together?
If we live together, we can see each other whenever I come home, right? I widened my eyes at Sean's words. It goes without saying that I nodded with great delight. After that, we started living together. Of course, I also reported this to Mom via email. Then Mom replied, "Take a year to see how it goes."
See how it goes? What does that mean?
I tilted my head. Naturally, no answer came. But it must mean that if we live together for a year, then it's okay to get married. Surely, if we live together, we'll understand each other's good and bad points. There is a disadvantage of getting bored, but there is also the advantage of being able to support each other closely. There are many people who regret getting married and thinking it wasn't supposed to be like this. Living together can prevent that, I think. It's just a year to endure, I thought, and I started living with Sean. However, once we started living together, I began to notice only Sean's bad parts. First of all, because his income is unstable, he doesn't contribute money to the household. So, the living expenses came out of my salary. However, there is a part of this that can't be helped. When the company gets on track, the income will stabilize. Until then, please bear with it. Sean says so, and I think he's right. So, I kept enduring it, thinking it's just for now. But, there are other things that bother me. What bothers me the most is that he doesn't do any housework. Cleaning, laundry, he doesn't do anything around the house. How did he live alone like this? Cooking can be managed by eating out, but you can't avoid laundry and cleaning. Now, I'm doing it for you, but how did you manage before?
Oh, I hired services, various ways.
It's so vague, I was really appalled. Mom might have seen through these parts. I thought so, just a little. But it's something I can do for him. I won't dislike Sean for something like this. Thinking that, I handled both work and housework. And then, about a year passed. A letter arrived for me. It was an invitation to a high school reunion. Apparently, one of my classmates got married. So, to celebrate that, they decided to have a reunion. So, can I go?
I don't mind. I have a business trip too.
Okay. Then, I'll go. With that, I got Sean's permission and attended the reunion after a long time. The venue was filled with familiar faces. Among them, Tracy spoke to me.
Hey, isn't it poor Virginia? Did you even have clothes to wear to the reunion? I'm not poor anymore. I have a job now.
A job? Oh, right.
A girl like you couldn't get married, right?
Tracy laughed in her high-pitched voice. What does she mean? I felt irritated. I clenched my teeth and glared at Tracy. Then, noticing my gaze, Tracy asked,
"What? Do you have anything to say?"
"Being alone suits you."
"I'm alone now, but I plan to get married someday. I'm living with someone now,"
I replied, not averting my eyes from Tracy. The old me would have just managed to ignore her. I don't want to be teased like before. With that determination, I stared at Tracy.
"What? Marriage? Living together? Is that true?" "It's true. Should I show you a picture of him?"
"You're being deceived, aren't you? Why would someone like him love poor you?" Tracy asked, laughing. I pouted as I glared at her.
"He's not like that. He's different from you."
"Humph. It would be nice if that were true." "I can see you crying, being deceived." Tracy's words were deeply infuriating. Since then, I continued to ignore Tracy's words. However, it was true that her remarks planted a seed of doubt in my mind. When Mom voiced her opposition to the marriage, Sean didn't push back. Normally, in such situations, wouldn't one argue their case or assure their love? At the very least, saying something like "please watch over us" would leave a better impression. But Sean said nothing. In fact, he seemed almost relieved. Could it be, as Tracy said? Maybe Sean didn't intend to marry me. His refusal to do any housework was a sign. By doing nothing, he was pushing me away. If I lost patience and left him, he could avoid confrontation. Perhaps that was his plan. Once I started thinking this way, I couldn't sit still. I left the reunion early and rushed home. After a while, Sean came back.
"Welcome back. I need to talk to you."
"What's up? How was the reunion?"
"That doesn't matter. Come here."
I called Sean to the living room. I had him sit across from me and placed the marriage application on the table. "A marriage application? What's this?" "Well, at the reunion today." I told him what Tracy had said, and then asked about our marriage.
"Oh, I see. I do intend to marry you." "Really? You're not deceiving me?"
When I asked, Sean nodded deeply. Then he picked up the pen I had placed.
"I'm not deceiving you. If you want, I'll sign it right now."
"Then please sign it." I had my phone ready. And I started recording. But, are you sure about Sabrina? Have you come to terms with that?
We've been living together for nearly a year.
I had endured for a year, and Mom would understand. That was what I believed.
Sigh. If you're okay with it, then I am too.
With those words, Sean began to sign. I recorded the whole thing. After he finished, he handed me the pen. Now you sign it and submit it tomorrow.
What about you? Sorry, I can't make it because of work. But you'll feel better submitting it yourself, right?
He didn't want it to seem like he was hiding the marriage application. This was his way of showing his all. That's how he said it. Tears began to fill my eyes. Thank you.
It's okay. Here, give me the phone. I'll record the rest for you.
I handed him the phone and took the pen. While he filmed, I signed the marriage application. The next day, I went alone to the office to submit it. After it was accepted, I called Sean to report. It went to voicemail, but I left a message. Sean called back an hour later. I just submitted it.
I won't be home tonight because of work, but thanks. Also, let Sabrina know.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I'm heading to work now. I took the morning off to submit the application. I also needed to report the marriage to my office.
There's so much to do.
I braced myself and headed to work. Afterward, I worked as usual. Since I took the morning off, I ended up leaving later than usual.
It's late. I need to hurry home.
Since it was later than usual, there were fewer people around. Feeling a bit uneasy, I hurried home. As I turned from the main street into the residential area, I suddenly felt someone behind me. However, when I turned around, no one was there. Something is off. I tried to run instinctively. At that moment, I felt a strong impact on my back.
Ouch!
Unable to withstand it, I fell to the ground. Just as I was about to lift my head, something rod-like was coming towards me. Instinctively, I protected my face with both hands. Bang! With a strong impact, I was blown away. At the same time, I heard my phone clattering and rolling away. Huh? Was I hit? That was my immediate thought as I screamed out.
Someone! Help me!
Startled by my loud voice, the presence in front of me retreated. When I opened my eyes slightly, I barely saw the back of a woman running away.
What just happened? A thief!
I hugged myself with trembling hands. Someone passing by called the police for me. Soon, the police arrived. An ambulance also came, and the area was in an uproar.
Did they take anything? Like your wallet? My wallet is safe. But my phone?
I answered in a trembling voice. My wallet was in my bag, so it was safe. But I had my phone in my hand for security reasons. That turned out to be a mistake. I had intended to call the police in case of an emergency. I had been confident, but look at me now. I felt so pathetic that I started crying. The police officer kindly comforted me. Although my injuries weren't serious, I went to the hospital just in case. After treatment, I was questioned by the police again. However, I had no idea who the attacker was. The police said it was probably a random crime. I was terrified.
Shall we contact your family? Oh, but I don't have their numbers.
Since my phone was taken, I couldn't contact Sean. In the end, I took a taxi back to my parents' house. I was too scared to be alone. I stayed with my mom, and the next day, I went to Sean's office. I presented my business card to the receptionist and spoke to the woman at the counter.
Excuse me, I would like to see my husband, Sean Sanders. I'm Virginia Sanders, his wife.
When I said that, the receptionist's face clouded. After thinking for a moment, she hesitantly told me,
I'm sorry, but could you please tell me your name again?
Please call the CEO. Sean Sanders, who works here as the CEO. I mentioned Sean's name again. However, the receptionist replied with confusion.
There's no one by that name here.
Huh? I couldn't understand what was going on. At that moment, I heard a voice from behind.
Is a jealous pauper here to disrupt our business?
I turned around and saw Tracy with a sarcastic smile. In that moment, a horrifying thought crossed my mind. Why isn't Sean here? And why is Tracy here? From the look on her face, it was clear she knew something. If Tracy had orchestrated all of this, it was absolutely unforgivable. If she was just mocking me, I could have laughed it off. But yesterday's incident was too much. It was something society could never forgive. I clenched my fists tightly. However, nothing was certain yet. I needed to proceed carefully. I took a deep breath and spoke to Tracy.
I'm not here to disrupt anything. I'm just here to see my husband.
Husband? Does he even exist? Tracy laughed loudly. I held back and responded.
He does exist. His name is Sean Sanders.
Sanders?
I don't know that name. There's no one like that here, right, Nadia?
Tracy asked the receptionist, Nadia. Nadia nodded, looking confused.
Yes, we don't have anyone by that name.
See?
Now get out of here already.
Tracy made a shooing gesture. I frowned instinctively.
But Sean is the CEO here. Shut up. Our CEO is not Sean, it's Keith. Keith Kelly.
Tracy banged on the reception desk. The noise startled me.
If you understand, get out of here now.
I clamped my mouth shut at Tracy's shouting. There was no point in arguing any further. And since the woman called Nadia didn't deny it, Tracy's words were probably true.
All right, but just tell me one thing. Huh? I don't want to tell anything to a poor person like you.
Tracy grimaced. I looked down, almost whispering.
Why are you here?
I'm an employee here, the CEO's secretary.
And soon, I'll be the CEO's wife, unlike you, a real one.
Tracy laughed through her nose. I was so frustrated that tears started to flow. You were probably scammed into marriage, weren't you?
Using our company's name, what a loser.
Sean. Yes.
Go to the police with your scam story.
Tracy pushed my back. And just like that, I was pushed out of the office.
You're a nuisance. Don't come back to this company again.
Tracy said while making a shooing gesture. I didn't have the energy to argue back anymore. I left the office, feeling defeated. As I walked away, I mumbled to myself, "What on earth is going on?" My cell phone was gone, so I couldn't even call Sean. Feeling lost, I wandered to a nearby park and sat there, staring blankly. What should I do now? I couldn't think of anything. As I sat there, someone suddenly spoke to me.
Excuse me, Mrs. Gray. I mean, Mrs. Virginia Sanders, right?
I looked up and saw Nadia, the receptionist, standing there.
Can we talk for a bit?
Nadia offered me a can of coffee. As I accepted, I nodded slightly. Yes.
Earlier, I said there was no such person, but I actually remembered someone.
With a thoughtful look, Nadia began to speak. This is what she said. The CEO of the company where Nadia works is indeed Keith Kelly. However, apart from Keith and Tracy, there is a high turnover rate in the company. Their business practices are exploitative. Overtime without pay is the norm, and working on weekends is also common. Moreover, Keith and Tracy have a dominating presence in the office, creating a very toxic atmosphere. Naturally, employees quickly leave, and the company is constantly short-staffed.
So, they rely heavily on temporary workers.
I see, I said, but it wasn't hard to imagine. Tracy's overbearing attitude has always been the same. And her disdain for others hasn't changed either. If she is to become the next CEO's wife, she probably acts like this all the time. I sighed in exasperation. Then, Nadia turned to face me.
And here's the problem, there was a temp worker named Sanders.
Nadia continued her story. It was about 2 years ago, when Nadia had just joined the company after graduating. At that time, the company had just been established, and there were many full-time employees. But due to the bad behavior of Keith and Tracy, the number of employees quickly dwindled. So, they brought in temp workers, and one of them was a man named Sanders. He was a serious person, but it seems he quit after about 6 months.
I didn't know his name, so I just looked at some old data.
Could it be?
Yes. That person's name was Sean Sanders.
I was stunned by Nadia's words. I realized that Tracy's company had a connection with Sean Sanders. This meant that Tracy might be involved in this situation. It turns out my bad premonition was correct. I was about to lose my composure. But there was still hope. For instance, this is what I thought. I met Sean about 2 years ago. At that time, Sean Sanders was working at Nadia's company. In other words, my husband Sean didn't want to admit he was just an employee, so he pretended to be the boss. But he soon quit the company. So he couldn't tell me the truth. Thinking back, it's understandable why Sean didn't do anything when Mom was against our marriage. He might have thought he wasn't good enough for me at that moment. He probably wanted to find a job. And then get married. But this is just a convenient story for me. There is another scenario in my mind. It's the worst story. About 2 years ago, Tracy, wanting to make fun of me, came up with this scheme with someone. They created a fictional character and arranged for me to marry him. Thinking this way, many things make sense. The fact that Sean didn't come home or do any housework is all understandable. He was mocking me, so it's natural. However, things took a turn for the worst. It was when I pressured Sean into marrying me. Feeling cornered, Sean disappeared from my life. I told this story to Nadia. At that moment, Nadia loudly denied it.
But that's strange. Because your marriage application was accepted, right?
Yes.
If that's the case, the details in the application must be true.
Now that you mention it, that's right. If I had written something incorrect in the marriage application, it wouldn't have been accepted. The marriage application I submitted was definitely accepted. This means the details written there were true. The marriage application includes sections for current address, birthplace, and so on. If false information is written, it wouldn't be accepted.
Then, the details on that marriage application are. We might be able to trace him from there. Oh, but you already submitted it, right?
Nadia sighed and slumped her shoulders. But I saw hope. Because I had a copy of the marriage application. In fact, it was just before I submitted the marriage application. I reported to Mom that I was going to submit it. At that time, Mom told me to make a copy. She said it would be a good keepsake and useful in case something happened. I didn't think much and just made the copy.
I have it.
I took out the copied marriage application from my bag. Nadia's face lit up when she saw it.
Amazing! Then we might be able to do something with this. Yes, that's right. And can I ask you a favor, Nadia?
I asked Nadia for a favor. Nadia willingly agreed to help. This will work out somehow. Just wait, I won't forgive you. I made up my mind to take revenge on Tracy. After that, I proceeded with various preparations behind the scenes. Of course, it was to take revenge on Tracy and the others. I needed to gather the necessary evidence and find allies. As I progressed with the preparations, Mom's presence always came to mind at crucial moments. Not only with the marriage application, but her advice in the past helped me overcome many problems. Thanks to Mom's advice, I was able to obtain the evidence safely. There were so many times like this that I couldn't help but feel indebted to Mom. I should have listened to Mom more seriously. If I had, I wouldn't have hastily submitted that marriage application, and none of this would have happened. I deeply regret it, but there are more important things to focus on right now. I dedicated myself to that. A few weeks passed by. One day, a call came from an unfamiliar number. I had lost my phone in the incident. Could it be someone who got my new number from someone else? With that thought, I answered the call. Immediately, a loud voice came through the phone.
What are you doing? Hurry up and answer.
This voice. It's Tracy. I frowned instinctively and asked back.
Tracy? How do you have my phone number? Shut up. I've contacted so many people. I'm exhausted.
It seems she called every classmate she could think of. Anyway, it's convenient that she contacted me. I was just about to get in touch with her. With a mischievous grin, I asked Tracy. All right, fine. So, what do you want?
What do I want? What did you do?
Huh? I didn't do anything. Even though I wasn't playing dumb, Tracy raised her voice in frustration.
Huh? You did nothing. Don't lie. Then why is my company struggling?
That's the CEO's problem. Telling me won't change anything. At that point, Tracy cut me off, yelling.
Everyone mentioned your name. They said I treated you terribly.
That's true, isn't it?
I did nothing. You were the one who got scammed into a fake marriage.
Startled by Tracy's shouting, I instinctively moved my phone away. Even so, I continued talking. But you orchestrated it, didn't you? So it's something you did, isn't it?
Huh? I didn't do anything.
Oh? Really? I have proof. When I said that, Tracy hesitated for a moment. But then she raised her voice again, trying to intimidate me.
Proof? Where would you get something like that?
It's a hassle, but I'll explain from the beginning. With that preamble, I started recounting the events of the past few weeks. First, right after Tracy kicked me out of the company. I was in the park when Nadia came after me. Talking with Nadia, I realized the clue was in the copy of the marriage application. After parting with Nadia, I traced the birthplace listed on the marriage application to find a man named Sean Sanders. Of course, with the birthplace known, finding what appeared to be Sean's family home was easy. Using an online map, I went to that place. But what I found there was a large mansion. Sean Sanders had said he was a temp worker. Such a mansion seemed out of place for someone like that. Maybe he was an entirely different person. Just as I thought that. A person who seemed to be a servant peeked out from inside the mansion, probably suspicious of me lingering around.
Excuse me. Actually.
Realizing I was being suspicious, I spoke before they could. I don't quite remember what happened next. But when I came to, Sean Sanders was standing in front of me. A completely different person from who I knew. He seemed serious and very composed. Someone apparently impersonated me. Could you tell me more about it? Sean's first words were those. Though a bit scared, I showed him a copy of the marriage application. The other day, I submitted this marriage application. I began to talk about how I had been dating someone named Sean Sanders. I also added that I had married him. Moreover, I carefully explained that the marriage application was written in his own handwriting. I see. I don't know who he is, but he made me his enemy. Oh, probably. I continued, thinking that it was likely that someone from Nadia's company, Tracy, had leaked personal information. At that moment, Sean's expression changed. Then, with a frown, he said,
That woman, she was trying to ruin me. Trying to ruin you. Yeah, she looked down on me because I was a temp worker and said all sorts of things.
Sean looked quite angry. From just that, I could understand how Tracy had treated him. As I was thinking about this, Sean said,
I'll get a lawyer, so please cooperate. Let's make her pay together.
Yes. This is how I gained an ally in the real Sean Sanders. After that, it was simple. The lawyer took care of everything. Everything I was trying to do myself, the lawyer did it all for me. I stopped talking after explaining all this to Tracy. Then I told her.
After explaining this much, you understand now, right? We also found the woman who hit me. Huh? What are you talking about? It's no use playing dumb. You ordered her to snatch my mobile phone, didn't you?
A few days before this call, I received a contact from the lawyer. When I went to the law office, there was a woman there.
Who are you?
My name is Megan Howard. I'm truly sorry for what happened the other day. Megan confessed everything she had done to me. Megan is a housewife, but she sometimes works part-time at a supermarket. There, Megan got into trouble with a troublesome customer. The customer accused her of miscalculating the bill. Of course, it didn't matter if it was true or not. The problem was the customer causing a scene at the store. Megan and the manager managed to calm the customer down, but the customer's anger did not subside. After finishing her part-time job, Megan left the store, only to be ambushed by the same customer. The customer threatened her, saying they would make it impossible for her to work there. Megan apologized repeatedly, but the customer wouldn't listen. Moreover, the customer began to follow Megan around. That customer was, in fact, Tracy.
So, she told you that if you hit me and took my mobile phone, she would stop bothering you, right? What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. You can play dumb if you want, but we've already submitted that testimony to the police.
When I told her that, Tracy began to panic visibly.
Huh? Why? If you do that,
you'll get arrested too.
But it's what you did, right? Don't mess with me,
Tracy shouted. But no matter how much she yelled, the outcome wouldn't change. Your destination is prison, I declared to Tracy in my mind. Tracy, unable to calm her anger, began to argue in a way that seemed to blame me.
Why would I need your mobile phone? I don't want it. The story doesn't make sense from there.
Right. You didn't want the mobile phone. You wanted the data inside it, didn't you?
What? Data?
Yes, what Tracy wanted was the data from my mobile phone. A video of when the marriage application was being written. The marriage application had been submitted under my name and Sean's name. But it was I who submitted it. So if they said it was forged, I would be the only one to bear the blame. However, if it could be proven that I was deceived into submitting it and that someone else filled out the application, what then? The person who filled it out had forged Sean's name. Forging a name on a document is a serious offense, while submitting the marriage application without permission is also a crime. If I can prove that I was deceived, I might avoid punishment. The crucial point is that someone had written Sean's name on the marriage application without permission. Proving that is what matters. And the proof lies in that video. In other words, the video of the person pretending to be Sean writing the marriage application in front of me is significant evidence. You wanted that, didn't you? To protect the person pretending to be Sean.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. It has nothing to do with me.
Tracy blustered. But she didn't have her usual confidence. There was a weak, cornered look about her. Just give up already. I know it was your company's CEO who deceived me.
What?
Tracy was at a loss for words. But it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. I had been meeting with a lawyer to corner Tracy. In those meetings, the lawyer had shown me files on the people involved. Naturally, those files included photos of Tracy's boyfriend. The CEO she mentioned, Keith Kelly. When I saw the photo, I gasped. The person I had always thought was Sean Sanders was in the photo. It all clicked into place. Tracy had used her boyfriend to deceive me. She had fun pretending her lover Keith was Sean Sanders and fooling me all along. However, there was one mistake. Keith, pretending to be Sean, wrote the marriage application. Keith seemed to believe that if his identity remained undiscovered, I would be blamed for everything. But the fact that I had recorded a video changed everything. The video was irrefutable evidence, and now they faced charges of forging the marriage application. Tracy might have been able to deny everything up to this point. But Tracy was the one who incited Keith. If Keith got scared and slipped up, Tracy would definitely be implicated. Desperate, Tracy had used Megan to steal my mobile phone.
Isn't that right? So what if it is? You don't have any proof. That video, does it even exist? Isn't it just your imagination?
Tracy retorted quickly. Indeed, my mobile phone had been taken. Tracy was confident because she had my mobile phone in her possession. But she was making one crucial mistake. She thought there was only one copy of the video. You see, my mom always told me, always back up important things. With that advice in mind, I had made a copy of the marriage application. Of course, I also backed up the video and the photos of Keith pretending to be Sean.
No, then, your efforts were in vain. All you did was add to your crimes.
As I said that, I heard a loud knocking on the door through the phone. And then the voice shouting, "Police! Open up." It seems that Tracy has been caught as well. Reflect on your actions, you brought this upon yourself. I muttered those words as I hung up the phone. Afterwards, I heard that Tracy was arrested for instigating the assault on me. Meanwhile, Megan was also charged. However, I'm considering a settlement with her. Otherwise, Megan would be too pitiful. In a way, Megan is also a victim of Tracy. Moreover, Keith, who was impersonating Sean under Tracy's instructions, was also arrested. Needless to say, his charges include forgery of marriage documents. But it was all orchestrated by Tracy. The forgery of marriage documents was also likely under Tracy's orders. Though it's still under suspicion, the police investigation will reveal the truth eventually. In fact, Tracy is being rigorously questioned about these matters as well. But the story doesn't end there. Apparently, the two of them have been sued by others as well. Right after Tracy and Keith were arrested, several people filed civil lawsuits against them. I don't know much about these people, but I heard most of them were former employees of Keith's company. Apparently, Keith and Tracy had been abusing multiple employees during work hours. Medical certificates have also been submitted, so there's no doubt about it. Of course, I was planning to pursue them as well. I even asked Nadia to gather evidence. That will surely come in handy. In any case, judgment awaits them. They now face both civil and criminal trials. There are numerous civil cases, so it looks like they'll be overwhelmed with court dates. This entire incident was led by Tracy. Keith can be seen as someone who was dragged into it. Given this situation, there's no way Keith would choose to continue his relationship with Tracy. In the end, Keith broke up with Tracy. But Tracy hasn't accepted it. They're both standing their ground, so they might end up in court over this as well. Whatever it is, it's a result of their own making. In any case, they have to take responsibility for their actions. As for me, not much has changed. Of course, I've informed my boss about the broken engagement. I have mixed feelings about it, but I couldn't hide the truth. So I just laid it all out. Needless to say, I haven't fully come to terms with it. But I feel like I've returned to my previous routine. My workplace hasn't changed, and neither has the nature of my job. The only change might be that I've grown closer to Nadia. So, how's the new job, Nadia?
It's great, thanks to Mr. Sanders.
With Keith and Tracy's arrest, the company Nadia worked for went bankrupt. The employees were scattered, but Nadia was taken in by Sean's company. I think he appreciated her efforts for me and Sean. And how about you, Virginia? Things seem to be going well with Mr. Sanders, right?
Eh? Well, that's...
Since then, I've grown quite close to Sean. However, our marriage application was just annulled. Still, maybe I should muster the courage to try again. When I discussed the whole situation with Mom, including about Sean, she made a quiet remark. I'm relieved that this new guy seems good. It seems Mom had seen through everything from the beginning. One evening, my son Polly, his wife Rachel, and I had a conversation.
Please start saving some money and make plans to move out.
The couple had suddenly moved into my house one day and had a habit of spending recklessly. As soon as I said that, the two of them turned pale and confronted me.
Why do we have to leave?
And
you said we could stay here.
They started yelling various things.
You don't help with housework, and you keep asking for money. You need to become independent already.
Perhaps my words hit a nerve, as Rachel's eyes widened in anger and her face turned red.
Get out, you parasitic pensioner!
She grabbed a lottery ticket from her bag and threw it at me.
Annoying mother-in-law! Here's a lottery ticket for you as a parting gift. Now get lost!
The lottery tickets they bought never won anything. They were practically trash, but if I didn't pick them up, they'd be scattered all over the place forever. As I was diligently picking them up, Rachel watched me with a mocking laugh. However, a few days later, I found myself heading to the bank where Rachel worked with one of those lottery tickets. My name is Belinda. I am now 64 years old. My name is somewhat unusual, and people often asked about its pronunciation. This often served as an icebreaker with classmates and friends. During my last summer as a college student,
I can't figure out how to pronounce your name. Can you tell me?
Someone approached me and said. He was a small, curly-haired boy. By the time we were in college, most people got it right, but he still made a point of asking.
Belinda.
I wrote it down in large letters on my notebook. I meant to be a little mean. But he smiled happily and said my name over and over again. I never imagined that I would start living with him after graduation and eventually marry him. Fate works in mysterious ways. For several years after our marriage, we were not blessed with children, but we spent those years leisurely together. Then we had our son Polly, and the following year our daughter Sissy, making our family lively and bustling. I thought we would spend our days as a family of 4. Thinking about my children and husband every day, I was convinced the years would fly by in no time. I never doubted it until my husband Dylan had a car accident. That morning, Dylan, with his usual smile, said to me, "Polly and Sissy,
I'm off, see you later,"
and went out. We all thought he would come back as usual. However, on his way home, he was hit by a car driven by someone who had been drinking. According to the police, the driver had relaxed because it was the weekend and had a drink before heading home. Such excuses didn't matter. I just wanted Dylan back. I wanted him to come home safely. I would never see Dylan smile again. Still, I had to decide to raise my young children on my own. While working as a contract employee, I also struggled to manage housework and childcare. Polly and Sissy grew up without any major injuries or illnesses, progressing smoothly through elementary, middle, and high school. As they grew and became more independent, I felt both sadness and joy. "Mom, when I grow up, I'll make sure you can take it easy." Polly always said that on my birthday.
"Thank you. But don't worry too much about me." "What are you talking about? You've raised us all by yourself. Let me repay you."
"Oh, really, it's fine." It's an unforgettable memory of when the 3 of us gathered modestly around a small whole cake. Eventually, the 2 graduated from college and got jobs. Polly got a job offer from a trading company, and Sissy started working as a programmer. Looking back, it all happened in the blink of an eye. Life has somehow already reached its midpoint.
Well, looks like I'll be living alone now.
In the suddenly quiet house after the 2 left, I made myself some coffee and took a moment to relax. One year-end, Polly came home with a woman. She had a strikingly beautiful face. I was surprised. I invited the 2 into the living room to hear their story.
"Nice to meet you. My name is Rachel. I'm dating Polly."
"Oh my. I didn't know Polly had such a lovely girlfriend. Where did you 2 meet?"
"Rachel works at a bank. It's the bank that deals with my trading company. That's how we met."
"You work at a bank? That's very respectable."
"Not really."
She smiled softly like a flower.
"Mom, I plan to marry this woman, Rachel."
Blushing from his face to his ears, he confessed. I saw his father in him and smiled.
"Polly, you really are just like your father." "What?" "He also blushed like that when he proposed to me." "Really?" "Yes." "Rachel, please take good care of Polly."
"Likewise, I am happy to be your family." She also blushed shyly and said. Watching the 2 of them, so young and innocent, I blessed them warmly. After they had their wedding, I noticed that Rachel's behavior started to change. When they occasionally visited together, she would act coldly or ignore me.
"Rachel, could you help with dinner?" "I'm busy right now,"
she said sharply, even though she was just looking at her phone. When Sissy came home after a long time, Rachel was also harsh to her.
"So, Sissy, you're a programmer?"
"Huh? Yeah."
"Isn't that a really boring job?" "But it's very fulfilling."
"Well, it's fine, but Sissy, you're so plain that I feel embarrassed to tell my friends about you," Rachel said while looking at her well-manicured nails. Then she glanced at Sissy's hands. Sissy kept her nails short, but they were rough and dry, some even cracked. Noticing this, Sissy hid her hands, feeling embarrassed. She glared at Rachel with a sullen face, but Rachel remained indifferent. Rachel continued to work after getting married. As a bank employee, she probably took care of her hands for the job. However, calling Sissy plain or embarrassing seemed unfair. After Polly and Rachel left, Sissy and I talked over drinks.
Mom, was Rachel always like that? I thought she was really nice when we first met.
Had something happened to change her? Or had she been hiding her true self? Either way, I found it hard to deal with her, and I didn't want to live together and have a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. But around late summer, Polly started saying he wanted to live in my house, which is under my name. I know it's a lot to ask, but we really want to live here.
You were renting an apartment, right? What are you going to do about that?
The renewal process didn't go through in time. Rachel forgot about it, so we have to move out.
Is Rachel okay with moving in with me? What about her commute? I've told her everything. She's fine with it and will take the bus from here.
I see. It's all so sudden, so I'm a bit worried.
Please! I'll contribute to the household expenses.
After many discussions, I decided to let them move in with me. They should help out with some of the housework, right? I thought about that while tidying up the room, waiting for them to move in. However, once they moved in, neither Polly nor Rachel did anything. They left everything to me, saying they were too busy with work.
I understand Polly works late, but Rachel, you come home on time, right? You could at least help with dinner. Belinda, I'm tired when I get home. I need you to take care of that.
She pouted, her lips pursed. It seemed Rachel never intended to do anything from the start. Even when I asked Polly to tell her to help, she would complain while standing in the kitchen. But that was still better. Eventually, Polly started siding with Rachel.
Rachel, can you do the shopping today?
I asked her on a day off, and she looked annoyed. Seeing this, Polly stepped in between us and glared at me.
Mom, isn't that a bit harsh? Making Rachel do the shopping. No, it's not. I just ask her to cook dinner a few times a week or clean the bathroom. That's not true. I heard you've been making her redo the cleaning out of spite. I never said that. Belinda, you're a liar. Just the other day, you kept nagging me to clean properly. Nagging.
From then on, it became a back and forth of accusations. Polly had been fed a lot of negative things about me from Rachel. Given his tendency to side with the stronger personality, his attitude towards me worsened. Sissy tried to talk to them on my behalf, but it was no use.
Why should I listen to Sissy? It's laughable. You've always been so bossy for a little sister.
They wouldn't listen to reason. Sissy and I were at our wits' end. To make matters worse, they had a habit of overspending. They bought things they didn't need, maxing out their credit cards each month. They also loved eating out, often going to expensive restaurants and drinking. They even resorted to installment payments, and their debt kept growing. Mom, I'm sorry. Could you cover this just once?
All right, just this once.
They asked so earnestly, I couldn't refuse and covered their expenses. This became a habit, and they repeatedly asked me to cover their bills. Polly and Rachel started to rely on my money, spending without limits. I had to put a stop to it.
You two are spending too much. I'm not covering your bills anymore. Manage your own money.
Belinda, that's not fair. We contribute to the household expenses too.
That's just basic responsibility. Mom, you're being too strict. No, I've been too lenient.
I said it firmly. Their spending habits are intolerable. Then the two of them sighed in annoyance and left the room irritably. In the house they left. This is troublesome. I muttered to myself. This happened about 3 times, and no matter how much we talked or warned them, they didn't listen. Polly and Rachel often bought lottery tickets. Even if they lost, they kept buying, hoping for a big win they couldn't afford. They say you can't win if you don't buy, but in reality, you're more likely to lose even if you buy. I noticed that the trash bin was filled with losing lottery tickets. One night, I had a talk with Polly and Rachel.
Why don't you save money properly instead of aiming for a big win with the lottery? That again? We are saving money, right, Rachel? Of course,
Rachel said proudly, flaring her nostrils.
but you're buying so many lottery tickets?
I pointed to the losing tickets in the trash bin with my chin.
Now's the big chance. If we win, we'll be rich.
As I opened my mouth to argue, Polly quickly interrupted.
Getting rich without working is a dream come true, right? You haven't even won $1 so far, have you? But if we win, we can make Mom's life easier, so cut us some slack. There's no way to rely on the if we win scenario. Then what should we do? Save some money and plan to move out of this house.
As soon as I said that, the two of them came at me, their faces changing color.
Why do we have to move out?
And
You said you'd let us live here.
they shouted in various ways.
You don't help with housework and keep demanding money. You need to become independent. How dare you talk like that?
Rachel, apparently offended by my words, shouted with her eyes glaring and her face red.
Get out, you freeloading old woman!
She grabbed a handful of lottery tickets from her bag and threw them at me. Steam was practically rising from her head in her fury. I looked at Rachel, Polly, and the lottery tickets scattered on the floor. I was surprisingly calm, thinking that it would be up to me to clean up those lottery tickets.
You noisy mother-in-law! Here's some lottery tickets as a parting gift. Now get out. What? I said, that's your living expenses from now on. Got it. Mom, I've had enough too. I want to cut ties. Cut ties? Why? Can't you understand? How it feels to have a parent like you. You always lecture us in detail. Isn't that overprotective? I looked at their faces alternately, feeling an indescribable mix of sadness and frustration. They really want to kick me out. To treat me so harshly means that's how they truly feel. I dropped my shoulders and said, Fine. I'll pack my things and leave soon. I'll take these lottery tickets as a parting gift. Even though they're just trash, if I don't clean them up, they'll remain scattered here forever. Although I'm handing the house over to them, it's still in my name. Whether they are losing tickets or not, I have to clean them up. Rachel watched with amusement as I picked them up diligently. After packing my things, I explained the situation to Sissy and decided to live with her. Sissy is already married and lives in an apartment with her husband Ethan. I took a bottle of good, slightly expensive liquor and handed it to Sissy. Polly is so cruel.
Sissy poured herself a drink, downing it quickly and venting her frustrations. Sissy, angry on my behalf, was drunk and began complaining about Polly and Rachel.
Giving a lottery ticket as a farewell gift? That's ridiculous. I'm so tired of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict.
I sighed, looking at the lottery ticket in my hand.
Have you checked the winning numbers?
Now that she mentioned it, I hadn't had the time to think about it with all the packing and moving. Sissy leaned in to look at the ticket.
Can't you check this online? But they're probably all losers. It's fine, no need to check. Mom!
She set her glass down with a thud and looked at me with bleary eyes.
You should always check these things, just in case. Do you think so? Absolutely. It'd be frustrating to think we had nothing. Even if it's just $1 or $2 or 100 million, a win is a win.
Pressed by my daughter's insistence, I borrowed her laptop to check.
Which one should I look at? This one, I think.
When she pointed at the button labeled Check Winning Numbers, a list of lottery names appeared. I searched through the various names to find the one that matched my ticket. Finally finding it, I began comparing each number on the screen with those on my ticket. The text is so small. With Sissy reading out the numbers, I went back and forth between the screen and my ticket for about an hour. So far, no winners, and I was beginning to feel resigned. But as I picked up the last ticket, I thought I recognized the number. Wait, is this? Sissy noticed too. The number seemed to match the top prize. I must have memorized it from looking at the screen so many times.
It can't be. I must be mistaken.
I checked the screen and my ticket again. But no matter how many times I looked, the numbers matched. And the top prize was $9 million. I was speechless, almost falling off my chair.
$9 million? How much is that? $9 million?
Sissy's eyes widened, her drunkenness replaced by shock. Ethan came rushing in to see what was going on. The three of us checked and rechecked countless times. It was definitely a winning ticket. The reality was so surreal that we pinched our cheeks to make sure we weren't dreaming. Apparently, it wasn't a dream.
Polly and Rachel must not have checked it. They were probably too distracted by arguing with me.
With the winning ticket in hand, I decided to go to the bank the next day. The nearest bank to Sissy's house was the one where Rachel worked. I wasn't thrilled about it, but the other options were too far away. Determined to get it over with quickly, I walked into the bank. Rachel stood at the counter with a smug look on her face. When she saw me, she briefly scowled and clicked her tongue. There were few other customers, and I was called up immediately after taking a number.
"What do you want, Belinda? Here to beg for reconciliation like a parasite?"
She laughed mockingly. I showed her the lottery ticket.
"I won the lottery. I need to process the claim."
"A win?"
"One of the tickets you gave me as a farewell gift hit the jackpot. $9 million. I need you to process it."
"Belinda, have you finally lost it?"
"I won't fall for such a lie. It's not a lie. Please check it properly. Even though I know it's a lie."
Rachel took the lottery ticket I showed and went to her boss. A few minutes later, the boss came rushing over in a fluster.
"I sincerely apologize for the earlier misunderstanding."
He quickly led me to a room in the back. Seeing this, Rachel's face turned pale, realizing something serious was going on.
"What? It was true."
I heard her mutter in disbelief. As we proceeded with the formalities in a separate room, the door suddenly opened. Both the boss and I turned to see who it was, and it was Rachel, storming in.
"Give back that lottery ticket. It was originally mine,"
she shouted as she grabbed onto me. I was stunned. But, of course, the boss pulled Rachel away from me.
"What do you think you're doing? Stop making false accusations. That lottery ticket, I bought it. It's mine. That's my $9 million. But you gave it to me as a farewell gift, didn't you? And considering your poor conduct earlier, you should reflect on your actions."
Rachel, looking both resentful and regretful, shouted something as she was escorted out by other bank staff. In the now quiet room, I finished the formalities. As I was leaving the bank, the boss deeply apologized.
"I'm deeply sorry for my subordinate's rudeness. I will make sure she understands her mistake."
"Oh, don't worry about it. I hope she improves her attitude a bit. Indeed. Please continue to favor us with your patronage. The boss kept greeting politely until I was out of sight. Due to the large amount, the money transfer to my account would take some time. I considered buying another house with that money and moving there. It's not good to keep relying on Sissy, and it's more than enough for living expenses. I thought about possibly moving to a rural area in another state, and my dreams kept growing. When I got home and was discussing this with Sissy, I received a call on my mobile phone. It was from Polly. I hesitated, sensing something bad. He probably heard about the $9 million win from Rachel and planned to ask me for money. Sissy seemed to think the same and shook her head silently. Don't answer it. Her eyes were telling me that. After a while, the ringing stopped. I thought it was over, but after a few tens of minutes, the phone rang again. I decided to ignore it, but eventually, I answered.
Mom? Hey, did you really win $9 million?
It's true.
So what? That lottery ticket, I bought it. It's not right to take it from me. I deserve the $9 million.
I sighed, knowing it would come to this.
But you gave it to me as a farewell gift, didn't you? It's not right to take away my living expenses. We need living expenses too. And we cut ties already.
What do you want now? Mom, I meant that as a joke.
I don't care. I won't give you the money. After all you've done, a joke isn't going to fix anything. That's not fair, Mom. Are you listening? Mom.
I hung up the call without saying another word. It was the son and his wife who decided to cut ties and kick me out. Answering the phone felt pointless, so I ignored the subsequent calls. I thought they would give up, but a few days later, they showed up at Sissy's house. On the screen of the camera-equipped doorbell, I saw them banging on the door.
Mom, Sissy! Open the door! This is unacceptable. Come out, you thief!
Calling me a thief was incredibly rude. Even though I told them to stop yelling through the doorbell, they just kept getting louder. What should we do? Then Sissy brought her husband Ethan over.
Leave it to Ethan.
What?
Ethan is a lawyer. He's strong in situations like this.
I was skeptical, but Ethan adjusted his round, black-rimmed glasses and said,
Leave it to me.
He went outside. Watching through the doorbell camera, I saw Polly and Rachel yelling. I could hear Ethan's voice responding.
Violence is not acceptable. Please leave. Get out of the way! We need to talk to Mom. That's not possible. Making a scene will disturb the neighbors. You're causing this by not bringing Belinda out. Belinda refuses to come out. Besides, you have no right to take or claim the $9 million prize. You gave up the ticket. Stop talking nonsense. Yeah, Mom, we know you can hear us. Open up. If you keep this up, I'll call the police.
Ignoring Ethan's warning, the two continued to cause a commotion. When they tried to force the door open, Ethan intervened, and Rachel slapped him. Polly grabbed Ethan by the collar, looking like he was about to punch him. I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police and asked them to come immediately. Sissy also contacted the apartment management office to inform the police. Fortunately, a police station was nearby, and within about 5 minutes, 2 or 3 officers arrived. Polly and Rachel struggled and tried to flee but were quickly subdued. Even then, their shouting continued from beyond the door, gradually fading as they were taken away. The front door opened, and Ethan walked in slowly. His clothes and hair were disheveled, his round glasses almost falling off his face, looking like he had just returned from a battlefield. Despite being a gentle person who disliked violence, he had gone through so much trouble for me. Sissy and I both thanked him profusely. I decided to treat him and Sissy to a fancy dinner soon. As for Polly and Rachel, we heard from the neighbors. Apparently, their relationship started deteriorating the day I claimed the $9 million prize. They argued every night, becoming the talk of the neighborhood. They shouted about how they shouldn't have kicked me out or given up the lottery ticket. They claimed the $9 million should have been theirs. Eventually, they started blaming each other. After being taken by the police, their relationship became even more strained. A few days later, things quieted down, and it turned out they had divorced and were living separately. A moving truck came and took Rachel's belongings away. Polly stayed in the house and frequently came to us.
Give me some money.
Begging us.
Mom, share the money with me. I'm drowning in debt and can't manage anymore. I told you to manage your money, but you didn't listen. Now you have to face the consequences. Don't say that. You've got to be thinking about me, right? Like inheritance or something. There's got to be something, right?
There isn't.
What? If it's for me or Sissy, I'll use that money without hesitation. But for you, Polly, I won't use it. I've cut ties with you. Are you still saying that? And I'll make sure you don't get any inheritance. What? What do you mean by that? That's exactly what I mean. So, deal with your debts on your own.
Polly left that day, looking utterly dejected. The once confident swagger he had just a few days ago was completely gone. A few days later, he came back, this time deeply apologized.
Mom, please, I beg you.
But I didn't listen to him. I wasn't going to fall for the same trick again and again. I sent him away, telling him never to come back, and I locked the door. Yet, he kept coming back, undeterred, so I decided to buy a new plot of land, build a house, and move in with my daughter and her husband. The new house had enhanced security measures, making it impossible for Polly to easily get inside. As for the house that was in my name, I had it demolished and the land put up for sale. Polly lost his place to stay and, pursued by debt collectors, found it hard to settle down anywhere. It's a problem when you accrue so much debt that you can't live a stable life. And then there's Rachel. I went to the bank for some business and ended up having a conversation with her boss. Apparently, Rachel had been manipulating the bank system to find out my account information and PIN number. When confronted about this suspicious activity, it was discovered she was trying to use my personal information for her own benefit. This led to a major conflict with her boss. Eventually, it became a police matter, and she was fired. With a criminal record, finding another job was nearly impossible, and she was left living in poverty, ostracized by neighbors and former colleagues. As for me, I've been enjoying life in my new home, sipping drinks with Sissy in the evenings.
Maybe Polly and the others were just dreaming too big.
Ever since kicking Polly out, I've come to see Sissy as my only child. After being thrown out of my house by Polly and his wife, I felt so alone, thinking there was no one on my side. If Sissy and Ethan hadn't taken me in, I would have ended up homeless on the streets long ago. I can't thank these two enough. I don't intend to rely on the lottery winnings. I'll continue to live a modest and prudent life, just as I always have. But sometimes, I do enjoy having a drink and living a little more luxuriously with Sissy and Ethan. Suddenly, the electricity bill skyrocketed. In a panic, we called the utility company, and the technician came over, looking puzzled.
Have you seen this wire before?
As my husband, Sam, and I rushed over, the technician carefully moved a plant nearby to make it easier for us to see. Decided to buy a new plot of land, build a house, and move in with my daughter and her husband. The new house had enhanced security measures, making it impossible for Polly to easily get inside. As for the house that was in my name, I had it demolished and the land put up for sale. Polly lost his place to stay and, pursued by debt collectors, found it hard to settle down anywhere. It's a problem when you accrue so much debt that you can't live a stable life. And then there's Rachel. I went to the bank for some business and ended up having a conversation with her boss. Apparently, Rachel had been manipulating the bank system to find out my account information and PIN number. When confronted about this suspicious activity, it was discovered she was trying to use my personal information for her own benefit. This led to a major conflict with her boss. Eventually, it became a police matter and she was fired. With a criminal record, finding another job was nearly impossible, and she was left living in poverty, ostracized by neighbors and former colleagues. As for me, I've been enjoying life in my new home, sipping drinks with Sissy in the evenings. Maybe Polly and the others were just dreaming too big. Ever since kicking Polly out, I've come to see Sissy as my only child. After being thrown out of my house by Polly and his wife, I felt so alone, thinking there was no one on my side. If Sissy and Ethan hadn't taken me in, I would have ended up homeless on the streets long ago. I can't thank these two enough. I don't intend to rely on the lottery winnings. I'll continue to live a modest and prudent life, just as I always have. But sometimes, I do enjoy having a drink and living a little more luxuriously with Sissy and Ethan. Suddenly, the electricity bill skyrocketed. In a panic, we called the utility company, and the technician came over, looking puzzled. "Have you seen this wire before?" As my husband, Sam, and I rushed over, the technician carefully moved a plant nearby to make it easier for us to see. From an external outlet of our house, a strange wiring extended, heading towards the in-laws' house. "Do you know anything about this wiring?" Sam and I exchanged glances. We were probably thinking the same thing. "Hey, Sam. Could this be?" "Yeah, no doubt. This is why our electricity bill suddenly spiked." Sam then reached out to the outlet and quickly unplugged the wiring. The moment he did it, a high-pitched scream came from the direction of the in-laws' house. "Ah!" It must be Maël, Nicola. Then, some hysterical muttering was heard, and the voice came out of the door, heading our way. And there, Nicola burst out from the garden. "I am Mary, a 32-year-old housewife. My hobby is eating sweets. Every day, I gather information about sweets by asking friends or researching on my own. Sam, my kind husband, always accompanies me in this hobby. Sam and I, both the same age, have been together since college. I have always loved Sam for his kindness, unchanged from the moment we met. Incidentally, I also adored Tony and Nicola, Sam's parents who raised him. Many of my married friends struggle with their Maëls. I've even heard stories that ended in divorce due to issues with the MIL. Fortunately, such problems were irrelevant to our family. Nicola, who shares my love for sweets, always delights in the treats I bring over, and my Fael, Tony, though a man of few words, always gives a sense of comfort with his constant smiles. Both of them are dear to me, and I like them so much. Tony and Nicola now live about a 30-minute drive away. Not too close, yet not too far, just the right distance. But sometimes, I think, would it be possible to live together with such a couple? Not that I want to live together. But, perhaps, it could work out well. I was fond of them to the point of entertaining such thoughts. However, the world isn't always so sweet, as I would later come to realize the truth. One day, I was baffled by the news Sam shared with me.
What? Tony and Nicola?
Turns out, Tony and Nicola were moving into the vacant house next door to us. I had assumed their in-laws' house was owned, but it turned out to be a rental. They were considering moving since their place was getting old. And when they found out the house next to ours was vacant, they set their sights on it. It was an unexpected close-distance living arrangement. I was instantly overwhelmed by anxiety. We had been getting along fine with Tony and Nicola, but would it continue to be okay? Living next door meant we could see each other every day if we wanted. I liked Tony and Nicola, but seeing them every day might be too much. But it was too late to say, "It's too close, so please don't move in." When Sam heard about the move, he gently advised Tony and Nicola that it might not be a good idea. However, they didn't listen, saying, "We're so close now, it'll be fine." I wanted to kick myself for my previously optimistic thought that living together could be possible. As my anxiety grew, Tony and Nicola moved in. Though I greeted them warily, things seemed fine at first. We kept a good distance, and some boundaries were established. But as they settled in, Nicola began to cross those boundaries. That was the force that overcame all the actions we didn't want her to do. Unannounced visits became the norm, and when she came over, they acted as if our house was her own. Not only that, but our actions seemed to be constantly monitored. Then, after finishing an unannounced visit and dinner inspection one day, Nicola made an outrageous suggestion. "Hey, Mary, I've been thinking, why don't you stop locking the door?"
What?
I couldn't believe my ears. Because can you believe it? In this day and age, Nicola was suggesting we keep our house unlocked, making it accessible to anyone at any time. That's not reassuring at all. Of course, it's unwelcome. Ever since Nicola moved in, even the doorbell ringing startles me, and now there's the added possibility of Nicola slipping into our house unnoticed. Again, of course, that's unwelcome, given how dangerous things are these days. I guess not locking the door does feel a bit scary, I said with a smile, trying not to offend, but Nicola frowned.
Oh, Mary, you worry too much. But it's okay. Once we get to know the neighbors better, I'll make sure they look out for us. Until then, well, Tony and I are around. We'll be popping by often,
she said, her words coming from a place of goodwill, which I appreciated. That's why I couldn't say that her frequent visits were becoming a burden. But there's only so much one can take. Last week, Nicola came over every day for 7 days. I end up having tea with Nicola at our house every day. It's no wonder frustrations arise when we're together so much. I've really come to understand that maintaining distance is crucial in the relationship between a mother-in-law and her son's wife. Nicola has been doing as she pleases, leaving unwanted plants in our yard or planting flowers without asking me. If it were once in a few months, I could tolerate it, but daily is a different story. Regarding the locking of the doors, Nicola has brought it up several times since. I've managed to convince her by emphasizing security consciousness. But then, Nicola started asking for a spare key. That's something I'll have to get Sam to refuse. There's no way I can give such a terrifying item to Nicola as she is now. Though Nicola can be difficult, I hadn't come to dislike her yet. Her meddling comes from a place of kindness. I felt more guilt about rejecting her than anything. But over time, my feelings started to change. Whether it's me who has changed, Nicola, or both, I can't say. But I began to feel discomfort and irritation at Nicola's remarks. It was a few months after Nicola and her family moved in. By then, Nicola's visits after lunch had become a routine part of our household. As for Tony, when I asked what he was up to, it seems he's usually out walking or shopping by himself. I suggested, You could go with him. But she declined, saying, "Walking tires me out." Lately, Nicola has turned into a rather spiteful mother-in-law. When I make tea, she used to simply thank me, but now she always has a complaint: it's lukewarm or it's too weak. Whenever she opens her mouth, it's either gossip or criticism. Being with Nicola makes me feel negative. Yet, I can't just refuse her, so I nod along and force a smile. It's terrible, isn't it? The grass in their yard has been left to grow wild. I'm almost tempted to cut it myself. Nicola was passionately discussing a neighbor's neglected garden today. Then I called out to them. "Oh." She stopped talking suddenly, so I instinctively followed her gaze, which had turned towards the bookshelf. Perhaps she found a book that interested her. It would be nice if we could read together in silence. Did you find a book that interests you? I was about to stand up and head to the bookshelf when Nicola reached for something not on the bookshelf but on the shelf next to it.
Nicola! That's not okay.
I saw what she had taken and reached out hastily. But Nicola opened it with an unaffected expression. "Oh my! Just look at this, Mary. My, didn't we overspend last month? Look at this electricity bill. It's twice what we pay at our house." Nicola was looking over our household budget book as if it were a gossip magazine.
"Please stop. Give it back,"
I said, snatching it away, and Nicola laughed. "No need to panic. It's just that, Mary, you seem a bit bad at saving, aren't you? Poor Sam, having a wife who can't save money. You should try a little harder, okay?" I could feel my face getting hot. The cover and spine clearly labeled it as a household budget book. Yet, the audacity to open someone else's budget book was unbelievable. And sweets, too. I love sweets as well, so I understand, but a wife who can't save shouldn't be entitled to sweets, should she? Nicola went on to criticize me for spending too much on groceries and unbelievable electricity bills. Then bragged about how good she is at saving. After a while, she seemed satisfied and left. After Nicola's departure, I was so frustrated that I couldn't stop crying. The stress might have been building up. I just can't take it anymore. I cried until Sam came home. "Mom's words don't have to bother you. I know it's hard. I'm really sorry. I'll tell her not to come over anymore." "Thanks, I appreciate it." After being comforted by Sam, I felt a bit better and decided to discuss something else. It was about the electricity bill. Just like Nicola pointed out, it was high. There hadn't been any changes, yet the bill had suddenly spiked these past few months. I was concerned, but dealing with Nicola had distracted me. Sam looked at the electricity bill and frowned. "This is definitely strange." "Yeah, isn't it? The next bill is coming soon, right? If it's still odd, we should contact the power company." A few days later, a bill arrived for over $1.3 thousand, more than double the usual. We hurriedly decided to have the power company come and check. The power company employee thoroughly inspected everything. Then, we were called over to see something peculiar. "Did you know about this line?" Rushing over, the employee moved a plant nearby so we could see better. Hidden by long leaves was an external outlet we hadn't used since the house was built, having completely forgotten about it. From that outlet, as the employee had said, a wire extended towards the in-laws' house. "Do you know anything about wire?" Sam and I looked at each other, likely thinking the same thing.
"Hey, Sam. This means..." "Yeah, no doubt. This is why our electricity bill suddenly increased." Just to be sure, we followed the wiring with the employee. Pushing aside hedges and overgrown weeds,
we found the wire indeed entered the in-laws' house shed. We couldn't see where it connected from there, but it was clear the in-laws' house was involved. The employee's expression hardened.
Should we call the police?
No, it might come to that, but let's talk first. This house belongs to our parents. The employee, tense at first with the suspicion of electricity theft, relaxed upon learning it was a family home.
Is that so? Then I'll leave it to you.
Thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. We escorted the employee back to our driveway and watched him leave. After saying goodbye, we faced each other, thinking. Sam sighed deeply, holding his head. I'm sorry for having such a mom.
Don't worry about it, or I can't really say that. What do we do now?
Tony and Nicola were probably home, as usual. Should we go talk to them now, or plan a strategy first? Sam, hand over his mouth, walked towards the external outlet left exposed after the employee moved the plant. Earlier, the staff avoided the plant, so I could clearly see the external outlet. Thinking about it, Nicola placing the plant there might have been to hide it. It felt wrong to suspect her, but it seemed the only logical explanation.
What's this connected to?
Sam then reached for the outlet and quickly pulled out the wiring.
Is it okay to pull it out? I just did. Thinking about them taking electricity from our house all this time makes me angry. Well, the employee is a witness. They can't talk their way out of this. If needed, we have that.
You're right. I nodded in agreement. That's when it happened.
Ah!
A high-pitched scream came from the in-laws' house. It must have been Nicola. Next, some hysterical mumbling, then the voice moved towards the door and headed our way. Nicola burst out of the house towards the garden with force.
Wow!
She hadn't expected anyone to be there. Seeing us, Nicola exclaimed in shock.
Oh! You scared me! What are you doing there?
She came at us aggressively, so I stood my ground and replied.
What about you, Nicola? Do you need something in our garden? You seemed quite flustered.
Well, that's... Nicola awkwardly averted her eyes. Sam, holding the unplugged wire firmly in his hands, was right there. Nicola exclaimed,
Ah!
And tried to snatch the wire from Sam's hands. Sam twisted away, hiding the wire behind his back.
What are you doing? No, that's my line.
Sam held the wire in front of Nicola's face and said in a low, serious voice.
This was plugged into our outlet.
Tom emphasized our, and Nicola glanced upwards, momentarily flustered.
So what? Do you know where this wire leads? I have no idea about that. But put it back right now. It's causing trouble over here because it's unplugged.
She demanded it should be plugged back in without knowing where it leads. And she is claiming harm from it being unplugged. That was as practically an admission of guilt. Yet, Nicola seemed unapologetically frantic. The reason for Nicola's panic was clear. I stood next to Sam, smiling brightly.
Nicola, please calm down. We can't plug in a wire when we don't know where it leads. This is our outlet, you know? It's fine to plug it in. Just a bit won't hurt. So. Oh. Nicola, you've always told me not to waste electricity, even a little, and that Sam is unfortunate to have a wife who can't even save on electricity. You said that, didn't you?
Well, that's... Nicola was restless. It's too late. She murmured softly, almost panicking.
What time is it now?
It's 9:57 a.m.
It's no use now.
With that, Nicola ran off, stumbling as she went. Sam was puzzled by Nicola's bizarre behavior, but I knew the reason. I whispered to Sam. What? So that's what it was. Maybe if we wait at home, they'll come by eventually? Sounds like it. Sam threw the wire down, and we headed back inside. A few minutes later, there was a sound at the door, followed by the doorbell. It was Nicola. I unlocked the door and opened it. Hello, Nicola. About earlier.
Shut up! Move!
As soon as the door opened, Nicola pushed past me, clicking her tongue as she entered. She was visibly in a bad mood. Stomping through the house like a monster, she plopped down on the sofa. Sam, already in the living room, started to speak, but Nicola beat him to it. I'm so thirsty. What about my tea? You're so slow. You should move before being asked. That's the rule, isn't it? Yes. And you locked the door again, didn't you? This is why people say the son's wife in this neighborhood is so cold. As if there's anything in this house worth stealing. Pretending to be all high and mighty is just annoying. Huh? Nicola continued to complain. I can't stand it anymore. I grabbed a half-empty plastic bottle nearby and slammed it on the table in front of Nicola. She froze, eyes wide.
Mary! Here, water for you. And you mentioned there's nothing to steal, but unfortunately, there are greedy and dirty people out there. Like someone who would steal electricity, for example.
Nicola's face showed turmoil. I sat down next to Nicola. Despite being right beside her, Nicola wouldn't even look at me. She looked down, her face turning pale.
What's wrong, Mary? You're completely different.
Oh, Nicola. There's only so much I can take. Did you think I was some kind of saint? I tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but Nicola looked as if she had encountered a demon rather than a deity. Nicola looked at Sam for help, but he just shook his head silently. Nicola had no allies. With an angry daughter-in-law beside her and Sam. As there was no one inclined to help nearby, Nicola's next move was predictable.
I'm sorry. I just remembered something. I have to go now.
You're not going anywhere. I pressed down on Nicola's shoulder as she tried to stand up from the sofa. Nicola's rear sank back into the sofa.
Mary! Really today?
You were the one who said you were thirsty, weren't you, Nicola? Surely you're not saying you can't drink my water? After making such a fuss, that wouldn't make sense, would it? Nicola, with tears in her eyes, reached for the plastic bottle but was stopped by Sam. Nicola looked relieved, but I didn't actually want to make her drink the leftover water. The real issue was yet to be addressed.
When did you start stealing our electricity? Stealing! What an awful thing to say!
But the fact is, the wiring plugged into our outlet was leading to your house, wasn't it? Nicola tried to speak several times, searching for an excuse, but couldn't find any that would work. There was no way to talk her way out of this situation. All that was left was for Nicola to admit and apologize. I thought that was going to happen, but it seemed luck smiled on Nicola for a moment. The doorbell rang, and when I checked, Tony was there. Is Nicola here? It seemed Tony had gone out for a bit and came back to find the door unlocked, the TV on, but Nicola missing, so he was worried.
Tony!
Nicola cried for help as if reinforcements had arrived. Tony was confused by Nicola's unusual state. Then, Sam explained everything from the beginning. After thinking for a moment, Tony slowly said, "Isn't there some mistake here? It's hard to believe at first that his wife was secretly stealing electricity from his son and daughter-in-law's home.
So, who did the wiring? Do you expect me to believe a stranger came and connected our houses?
Tony crossed his arms and pondered again. Then he agreed.
Well, we should probably go and see it.
And stood up.
But
Nicola tried to stop him, flustered, but Tony asked Sam to show him to the outlet. The wire ran into a shed where it wasn't visible. After checking, Tony came back pale-faced. And immediately made Nicola apologize. I'm sorry. Truly, I am. Nicola silently looked down. Like a child. According to Tony, the wiring was connected via an extension cord to a battery and Nicola's computer. The battery was bought when they moved in. She was advised to charge it during cheaper, nighttime rates, and using it during the day was cost-effective. Nicola had been doing exactly that. Initially, it was just that, but then she started plugging in her computer and other appliances since there were free sockets on the extension cord. Eventually, she used our electricity day and night. Nicola justified her actions by saying it was more cost-effective. It was infuriating enough that she had been stealing electricity. But even more so that she had looked down on me while lying all along.
You've been saying how pitiful Sam is for having a wife who can't save, or criticizing me for buying sweets while being unable to save. Remember?
That's the truth, though. Her lack of remorse was almost impressive.
Saving by using someone else's electricity isn't saving. It's just a crime.
I continued.
And don't think we'll just let this go because we're family. If you sincerely apologize, that's one thing. But if you keep this attitude, we'll have to involve the police.
Nicola looked surprised. As if she thought getting caught would be the end of it.
What kind of daughter-in-law are you? To betray your own family.
Don't talk like that. We just want you to make amends because we are family. As I reached for my phone, Nicola panicked and lunged at me. Sam quickly restrained her.
There's no evidence. With everything laid out like this, you still need evidence? Let me tell you something conclusive.
I pointed towards the roof. Nicola squinted. Then realized. Yes, our house is equipped with security cameras, which happened to cover the area around the outlet. Nicola murmured a small, "Ah."
Is this enough for you? And one more thing.
There's more? The reason you were in such a hurry today was because of the release of limited edition sweets, wasn't it? No way. I smiled. Yes. I had a friend get them for me, so I managed to secure them. If you hadn't been busy stealing electricity, you might have been able to get them on your computer, too. Too bad. Nicola trembled and then sat down on the spot. After discussing with Sam, we decided against reporting Nicola to the police. She had admitted to it, and we had evidence, but it was too much hassle, and being family, it might get brushed off. Instead, we decided to get a proper apology and compensation for the electricity from Tony and Nicola. It was awkward living so close, but it had to be done. Tony and Nicola, perhaps feeling awkward too, eventually moved back to their old house. Apparently, word got out about the electricity theft, and Nicola became the subject of rumors. Nicola was devastated and wanted to return to their original home. It turns out Nicola thought she was good at neighborhood relations. But in reality, people were just being polite. After paying us, Tony and Nicola were left with little money. But we would not help them. They needed to save on their own, especially on their beloved sweets. As for me, now that Nicola is gone, I'm enjoying my life. Deciding which sweets to buy next with the electricity bill back to normal.
Come on, swim faster or you'll drown.
From way above me, I could hear the laughter of my husband who had pushed me into the river. I had broken both my legs a month ago. There was no way I could swim. As I desperately struggled to keep from sinking in the cold water, my husband said something. Hearing that, all the patience I had been holding on to felt foolish. My name is Isabella. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I have a husband, Joe, who is 34 and also an office worker. Though we're a few years apart, his vast life experience has been a support to me in many ways. Joe and I met at work, where he was my boss. Initially, Joe made the first move, but I was drawn to him for his competence and leadership in various situations. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage. Working for a company with branches nationwide, I transferred to a different branch after getting married, feeling nervous yet fulfilled in my new environment. As a dual-income couple, we shared household chores. This company is ideal for me, eager to learn everything I can here, making studying indispensable even amidst a busy schedule. Joe also worked late, which motivated me to do my best. Being in the same company, we could easily understand what the other was working on and share daily events, making conversations with Joe very enjoyable. Initially, things were going well, but at some point, when I consulted Joe about work as usual. So you've gotten to handle such tasks now. Well, do your best. He responded somewhat coldly. The Joe I knew before would listen until I was satisfied and think of solutions together. I felt a bit lonely, but wondered if I had been a burden. Joe was busy, and I was no longer a newcomer. Telling myself that I should be able to solve things on my own by now, I consulted my new boss when in real trouble and tried not to discuss work at home. Then, on payday, "How much did you earn this month?" Joe asked for the first time. We had agreed to contribute a fixed amount from our salaries for living expenses and bills without knowing each other's exact incomes. It was unusual for Joe to ask such a question, but seeing no reason to hide it, I showed him my payslip. Then Joe, shocked, said,
All this without overtime. Don't joke with me. When did you start earning so much?
Far from being happy about the increased household income, Joe started treating me with a hostile attitude from that day on. Looking back, I remember hearing that Joe had an unusually high pride and only liked being around people who could boost his self-esteem.
It's because I've been sharing the housework that you can earn like this. I want to get promoted too, but I've been holding back.
Joe said that and instructed me to take over all the household chores.
A wife should play a supporting role to her husband and be modest,
he said abusively. Shocked, but verbally compliant. Understood. Please focus on your work, I said, while internally taking it as a challenge to manage all the housework and still excel at my job. However, seeing me juggle work and all the household chores, Joe would say things like,
I wish you'd just break down already.
Or,
can't you clean more thoroughly? I hate it when the room doesn't look like a showroom.
I tried to brush it off, but it was undeniably stressful. Perhaps it was wrong to keep thinking about divorce every day, whether at home or work. One day on my way to work, I missed a step on the station stairs and tumbled down a long way. I don't remember falling, but it must have been a bad fall because I ended up breaking both legs. Fortunately, no one else was involved in the accident during the morning rush, but I had to be hospitalized for a while. When Joe visited the hospital, he seemed annoyed and laughed.
Lately, you've been too proud of your work success. This is your punishment.
And said,
Your fractures are nothing serious, so come back home soon.
And left. After that, Joe did visit daily but only to angrily say,
The house is dirty, come back soon.
without a word of concern for me. I explained the situation to my workplace and started working from the hospital. When Joe tried to take away the laptop, saying,
"You're really greedy for money. I told you not to earn more than me,"
I quickly responded,
"I've already informed my boss, and I have work scheduled today. If you don't give it back, I'll have to call and say you took it,"
which made him return it with a click of his tongue, perhaps fearing it would become widely known since we work at the same company. Despite expressing how much he disliked me, Joe continued to visit my hospital room daily after work to complain. Upon finally returning home after my hospital stay, the room was extremely dirty.
"I've left your work for you. You love work and housework, so you must be happy,"
Joe said, but I was still in a wheelchair, unable to walk. Trying to clean what I could reach, like the desk.
"Wait, you still can't stand and work? Taking too long to heal. Isn't it because you're always sitting in that wheelchair?"
He criticized. I wanted to divorce him right there and then, but I couldn't move properly until my legs healed. I couldn't tell the hospital, where I had planned to have Joe take care of me post-divorce, that I wanted to be readmitted, so I endured until I fully recovered, thinking it was just a matter of patience. I told myself that overcoming this would make me stronger, and I'd divorce Joe, living each day without consulting anyone. One day, Joe's attitude changed completely.
"How about we go see a movie? There's something I want to see,"
he suggested. Though I felt a bit happy, the change was so drastic that it felt odd, so I replied,
"It's unusual for you to suggest that. I still have chores to do, so feel free to go by yourself."
But Joe said,
"Actually, my boss found out about my behavior and your situation and gave me an earful. I've been a burden till now, so I want us to go together. We haven't been out recently, and I want Isabella to take a break as a token of my gratitude."
Then he asked,
"What else needs to be done?"
and took care of everything. It had been a while since we went out together. Though I was suspicious, Joe tends to change his attitude quickly if someone in a position of authority speaks to him. If his boss had spoken to him, maybe he truly wanted to change. With that thought, I felt slightly happy, and given how tense I'd been every day, I decided to indulge in the break and agreed to go out. He helped me into the car, and we started our drive. The cinema was relatively close, so I didn't think it would be too much of a burden for him to drive, but we kept moving away from the direction of the cinema I knew. Curiously, I asked,
"Isn't the cinema in that direction?"
Joe replied with a smile,
"The local cinema wouldn't feel special, right? I thought we'd go to a bigger one today."
Feeling reassured, I let Joe take the lead and soon fell asleep in the car, tired from the daily grind.
"We're here."
Joe's voice woke me up, and we were at a deserted river, with no cinema in sight. Confused, I asked,
"What's going on?"
Joe said,
"The weather's nice. How about we take a commemorative photo?"
and grabbed my arm tightly, trying to pull me out of the car. Suddenly frightened, I resisted, but with my legs being weak and the strength of a man being overwhelming, I was forcibly dragged out. Without being put back in my wheelchair, the pain of dragging my legs made me groan. He dragged me near a bridge, gripping my legs as if to lift me, and I felt a fear like never before.
"Stop!"
I involuntarily screamed, but with no one around to help, I felt nothing but despair at the thought of being thrown off. Then Joe, checking to make sure no one was around and annoyed, said,
"Damn it! Don't make a noise. It'll be trouble if someone calls the cops,"
and forcefully pushed me into the river. It happened in an instant. Unlike in dramas, I didn't see the face of the person pushing me or my life flash before my eyes. I just fell into the river. In an instant, not understanding what had happened, I looked up from the river, desperately asking for help from Joe while angry, but he said,
"Better swim fast or you'll drown. Don't be mad just because you fell into the river. Maybe you need a little hardship, huh?"
And then he tried to leave. I pleaded,
"Please help me. I'll do anything you say from now on."
Even though I didn't mean it, I thought it was the only way to be saved. Still, Joe said,
"You're healed, right? Swim back home."
And laughed, then left without trying to help, drove away in his car. Desperately wanting to live, I managed to grab onto a floating log, struggling with the pain in my legs and my inability to move properly, let alone my poor swimming skills, teetering between life and death. If no one came to help. Just then,
"Are you okay? Hold on, I'm coming to help you."
a man hurried from the shore. A man with a large empty plastic bottle swam to me, gave it to me for buoyancy, and then pulled me to shore, saving me. After being urgently transported. "Thank you, really, thank you so much," I said to the man, crying from gratitude.
"No problem at all. My name is Brian. I was fishing a bit away and saw a woman being forcibly taken out of a car. I was shocked and sorry I couldn't reach you before you got wet,"
he replied. Despite everything happening so quickly, from being pulled out of the car to being pushed into the river, I was grateful for his help. "Not at all. You saved my life," I expressed my thanks. After sharing with Brian and the doctor about Joe's usual behavior at home and what happened this time, both were outraged and immediately reported it. The next day, to witness Joe's arrest, Brian and I went home together. I was still not fully healed, so I was in a wheelchair. The police were waiting for Joe as he returned home from work. Seeing me and Brian, Joe looked between us and mockingly said,
"Did you have an affair and get in trouble with the police?"
"Your life is over." Laughing. Confused by his absurd conclusion, the police said,
"What are you talking about? We're here to take care of you,"
and handcuffed Joe. Joe, yelling, said,
"What did I do? Who is this guy? Explain,"
trying to grab me even as the police restrained him. Astonished, I said,
"Did you forget what you did to me? Dragging me out of the car and pushing me into the river? That's a crime, isn't it?"
Looking straight into Joe's eyes.
"But you're alive, so I don't see why I'd be arrested,"
Joe retorted nonsensically. Being alive doesn't justify anything. Joe didn't apologize for anything he had done. Far from it, he insisted he was not at fault, and to me, he no longer seemed like a husband but something devoid of human compassion.
The act of throwing someone into the river, given the real possibility of death resulting from it, is considered attempted murder.
The police explained carefully. Joe had heard of fractures but never experienced one himself. Many around him had suffered fractures and seemed to live normally, so Joe perceived it as a minor injury.
"I thought fractures healed quickly, and given Isabella's resilience, I assumed she'd easily climb out of the river unharmed,"
Joe argued, claiming his arrest was an overreaction. He also assumed my absence from home was due to my reluctance to do housework, maintaining his innocence. Then, Brian, who had been silent till now.
"All I've heard is you justifying your actions. It seems you're not concerned about Isabella's injuries. From what I witnessed, your indifference is unbelievable."
He spoke up. Joe scoffed.
"You claim to have seen the scene, but there was no one there, was there? Do you have proof you were present?"
To which Brian countered, showing Joe a video.
"There's plenty of evidence."
Though taken from a distance, It clearly captured Joe dropping me into the river.
When I arrived, Isabella was nearly drowning, teetering on the edge of life and death. You wouldn't have seen, having left after dropping her. It's hard to tell from above, but the current was strong.
Brian continued.
From the bridge, it might have seemed deserted, but the shore had people like me fishing, or couples jogging, surprisingly many witnesses. They all provided evidence for Isabella.
Brian proudly showed Joe the videos. Joe's face visibly paled as if in a cartoon.
This was taken by another couple. As someone with a loved one, I find this unforgivable. They insisted you must pay for your actions.
Brian silenced Joe. Frustrated and unable to retort, Joe could only glare at us. Seeing him, I said, "Showing this in court will certainly demonstrate the malice in your actions." Finally conceding, I'm sorry." Joe apologized. He pleaded, "Please, I have a job. Spare me the arrest and the trial." But I realized his apology was only out of fear of his company finding out. Unforgiven, we proceeded to trial. Upon hearing of the trial, Joe protested.
"I apologized. What more do you want? I'll fight this in court. I won't let you have her way."
His outcry didn't deter me. I was determined to see the trial through. With decisive evidence in hand and Brian's support, I was able to calmly face Joe to the end. Joe insisted that fractures were minor injuries that everyone around him recovered from easily, attempting to depict me as lazy, but no one was swayed. I had been discharged from the hospital to continue rehabilitation at home, as explained by the doctor, not because I was fully healed. Joe's attempt to diagnose me without medical expertise only garnered sympathy for me from everyone present. The judge, after viewing the evidence I brought, handed down a swift prison sentence without probation to Joe, citing the maliciousness of his actions. Even after the verdict, Joe refused to give up.
"The judge and police are all deceived. Is she even really fractured? If so, her suffering seems like an act.
And
stop this nonsense and just obey me like before. What happened to you, Isabella?"
he ranted. To which I quietly responded, "The one who is wrong here is you." Joe's continued slander worsened the judge's impression, extending his sentence, as he inflicted more pain upon himself through his actions. Finally, everything ended, and I was free from Joe through divorce, feeling both exhausted and relieved. The more I put effort into my work, the more Joe used to get angry in the past. But now, I can focus entirely on what I want. It's as if Joe never existed. I concentrate on what's in front of me and steadily build my career. Fortunately, my workplace had no one who undermined others' character. And the depressive state Joe's attitude had induced in me gradually improved, allowing me to reclaim my former self. I also moved out of the cramped house I had lived in, enjoying a more elegant lifestyle, managing household chores and indulging in my interests as if reclaiming my lost time. Life is good now. Maybe marriage isn't for me for a while, I mused, noticing Brian looking at me sadly. The person I am today exists thanks to Brian, who saved me when I was drowning in the river. He was there for me, exhausted in both body and mind, after the trial ended and the divorce was finalized. He accompanied me during my hospital stay and my first trial, which is why I desperately wanted to express my gratitude by inviting him out for a meal on my treat today. Yet, considering Brian's busy daily schedule, I felt it wouldn't be right to invite him out too frequently, so I decided this would be a one-time gesture. Expecting the conversation to remain formal, I was surprised how well we got along, realizing hours had passed. I looked at the watch and realized Sorry for taking up your valuable time. Let's call it a day. I had fun. Thank you, I said, preparing to leave, but Brian asked,
Can I invite you out again sometime?
with a smile. Relieved he had enjoyed himself, we parted ways. Following Brian's invitation, we grew closer through multiple meetings, eventually dating and, surprisingly, marrying. Despite my initial apprehensions about a second marriage, Brian proved to be the ideal partner, supporting my career without jealousy or interference, enhancing my performance. Our relationship, built on mutual respect, allowed us to lead vibrant lives. Brian's hobby of fishing became a shared interest, helping me overcome my trauma of nearly drowning. Thanks to Brian's kindness, I've been able to live freely and happily.
You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person.
With that, my sister looked at me triumphantly. It's been 5 years since I got married, and while taking care of my father at my parents' home, I've been undergoing fertility treatments. My sister got married and was blessed with a child within 6 months. 2 months into her pregnancy, she returned to our parents' home for the birth. When I point out that my sister does nothing around the house, she coldly snaps back at me.
Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me.
My name is Johanna, I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband Andrew and my sister Camilla, taking care of our father, Richard. Andrew and I got married 5 years ago, and we've been struggling to have children, currently undergoing fertility treatments. Camilla also got married and lives in a condominium with her husband, William, who is often away on business trips, leaving her alone at home a lot. Claiming it was for early birth preparation, she moved in with us, where Richard and my husband and I live, 2 months into her pregnancy. Our mother passed away early from illness, so Richard raised Camilla and me by himself. However, Camilla has always been troublesome, causing problems ever since she was a child. In elementary school, she would hit other kids, and Richard was often called to the school to apologize. We hoped she would calm down as she grew older, but that never happened. She kept causing problems until she graduated high school, constantly troubling Richard. Richard had to go around apologizing to people, paying for damages, and was always exhausted from cleaning up after Camilla. Feeling sorry for Richard, I helped around the house as much as I could, cooking and doing laundry, so that he could have a bit of rest. Putting ourselves last, Richard devoted himself to raising us. I wanted to ease Richard's burden, so I studied whenever I had the chance. My hard work paid off, and I was able to attend a prestigious university and land a job at a major company. Now, I work remotely while taking care of Richard. Camilla, who moved in with us a month ago, does not do any housework and doesn't care for Richard, despite the trouble she caused him. Instead, she says, "Hey, big sis, isn't today's dinner too plain?
I'm pregnant, so I need nutrition. Make a more luxurious dinner tonight. Oh, and polish my shoes before I go out."
She treats me like a housekeeper, ordering me around. My sister, having become pregnant before me, thinks she has the upper hand.
Why don't you take care of your own things for once?
I was stressed out by Camilla's inactivity. Lying on the living room sofa, she glared at me.
You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person.
She sneered.
What a thing to say!
I would have children if I could. But that's not possible for me. Filled with frustration, I looked down. Seeing my distress, she added insult to injury.
Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me.
Camilla snapped coldly. Tears welled up, and I was left speechless, so I left the room. I went to my bedroom and cried into my pillow. Yet, I kept telling Camilla every day that it's better for her and the baby if she moved a bit, and to take care of herself. One day, perhaps in a bad mood.
Enough, you're so annoying. Can't you just leave the house? Just come here for Dad's care and the chores.
She blurted out something outrageous.
If you dislike me that much, why don't you go back home?
To which she replied,
Going back home would just increase my workload. What do you think I'm here for? You're the housekeeper, just listen to what I say and keep quiet.
Camilla said, mocking me. Realizing it was a waste of time, I started preparing for work. While I worked, Camilla lounged on the sofa, eating snacks and watching TV. I debated telling Andrew about the situation but didn't want to drag him into a sibling quarrel. Camilla puts on a good front in front of Andrew, so it probably looks like we're living harmoniously. While I was hanging laundry, "How long are you planning to stay here?" Camilla suddenly asked. "I have to take care of Dad. I can't just leave," I said while hanging the clothes.
It's going to be a problem if you don't leave. The baby is coming soon. You need to free up your room for us.
My husband and I were using the bedroom that Richard used to occupy. This room is the largest in the house. That's impossible. I refused, and she just said, okay, and backed off easily. The next day, while I was working, Camilla, usually lazing on the sofa, seemed to be up to something. Busy with work, I didn't pay much attention until I went to my room and was shocked. The long-running manga I had collected since childhood, and the accessories and clothes I bought as a reward for myself upon employment, were all gone. Instead, the floor was covered with baby items. I rushed down the stairs and confronted Camilla relaxing in the living room.
Camilla, where did you put the stuff from my room? It was in the way, so I sold it. If you're not leaving, we need the space. Your room is going to be the baby's room. I cleaned it up for you, so you should be thankful," she said nonchalantly, showing no sign of remorse. It's unacceptable to sell someone's belongings without permission. Bring them back now. I'm usually calm, but I couldn't remain so this time. Each item was filled with memories and treasured by me. Why are you so angry? You always say to move if I can, so I did while I could. There's no money left, just give up, she said, disinterestedly shifting her gaze back to the TV. Among the items Camilla sold was the engagement ring Andrew had given me. I insisted she buy it back, but she claimed she had no money and went back to her room. I told Andrew about everything that had happened so far, including today's incident, and apologized for the engagement ring being sold. Andrew was shocked to hear the story but immediately went to buy back the ring, and thankfully, we were able to retrieve it. Since then, I started paying more attention to Camilla's actions. I noticed that Camilla goes out a lot for someone who is pregnant. She lazes around during the day, but leaves in the evening and often returns late at night or in the morning. I hadn't worried about it before since Camilla has always been more active at night, but I wondered what she could be doing while pregnant. I discussed it with Richard and Andrew, and we decided to investigate her actions. One day, I secretly followed Camilla, who had dressed up and left the house. She walked confidently, as if she knew exactly where she was going, and entered a busy downtown area. She stopped in front of a hotel and waited for someone. A man arrived, and it was clear he wasn't William. I had suspected something, but seeing them enter the hotel arm in arm confirmed my fears. I immediately contacted William. When I told him about Camilla's affair, he was shocked, having thought she had come back home early for the birth, but he quickly hired a detective agency to investigate. William reported the investigation results to us while Camilla was out. The investigation confirmed Camilla's affair. Moreover, from conversations between Camilla and her lover, Johnny,
it was revealed that the child Camilla was carrying was Johnny's. Hearing the report, Richard turned pale and, in tears, "William, my foolish daughter has done something terrible. She's ruined her life. I don't know how I can ever make amends." He apologized to William.
"Richard, please don't apologize. I'm angry at Camilla, not at you. We may be family, but we are different people. It's my fault for not seeing her true nature."
Camilla betraying such a man of character was beyond foolish. We agreed to gather on Saturday when Camilla would be home, and then we adjourned. Saturday. The sound of the front door opening echoed.
"I'm sorry for intruding."
William appeared in the living room.
William, you didn't say you were coming today. What's up? The baby's gotten quite big, hasn't it?"
Camilla, rubbing her belly, smiled and spoke to William, oblivious that he knew everything.
"Camilla, is the child in your belly really mine?"
William asked Camilla without changing his expression.
What are you saying? Are you accusing me of cheating?"
Camilla angrily retorted to William's words.
"Camilla, I know everything. The child is Johnny's, isn't it? I had a detective agency investigate, so lying is pointless. I can't continue a marriage with someone who cheats. Let's get a divorce."
William spoke calmly and matter-of-factly. Camilla, panicking, tried to pretend she knew nothing.
"William, what are you talking about? The child in my belly is yours. We're not getting a divorce."
Camilla denied it, but William placed the photos from the detective agency of Johnny and her on the table.
"Can you still say you haven't cheated after seeing these?"
Camilla looked shocked at the photos, but claimed,
"It's not what it looks like. He was just giving me advice. It's terrible you would doubt me."
"There's no need for hotel meetings for advice," I retorted, frustrated by Camilla's refusal to admit her affair.
"So, how do you explain this?"
William played an audio recording obtained by the detective agency.
"Camilla, your belly has gotten quite big."
"Yes, it's because it's your child. It's going to be adorable."
"He doesn't know it's my child, does he?"
"Don't worry, William is clueless.
I married him for his money anyway. I want to raise your child without any financial troubles, so it had to be someone wealthy."
William stopped the recording there.
"Too bad I found out," he said.
Camilla's face turned pale. Upon hearing the audio for the first time, Richard, with his face flushed red and shaking with anger.
"Camilla, do you not have a conscience? All you think about is using people. It's high time you learn some shame,"
he exclaimed. Perhaps realizing there was no way out, she defiantly retorted,
"It's my child, no matter who the father is. It will be Dad's first grandchild regardless, so what's the problem? I'm going to have this child and raise it here."
Unable to contain my anger at Camilla's defiant outburst.
"Camilla, how much trouble do you have to cause Dad before you're satisfied? Do you have any idea how much you've made him suffer because of you?"
I yelled louder than I ever have before. Camilla turned to me.
"A useless person who can't even have children has no right to speak. Dad would be happier living with me, who can show him a grandchild's face, than with an unfilial person like you."
And she laughed triumphantly as if she had one.
"What did you say?" I exploded. "Jealous because Dad pays more attention to me, right? Always playing the perfect student, but now you're the inferior one because you can't have children. The baby chose me, not you, so you should leave this house." "What do you know, Camilla? How much do you think I've suffered because of you?" "Both of you, stop. Camilla, I don't care about the grandchild, just leave.
Richard intervened. Camilla looked stunned by Richard's demand.
Eh? Dad, why do I have to leave? It should be her. Camilla, I'm done cleaning up your messes. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't care about seeing the grandchild. Just leave within a week.
Camilla couldn't accept Richard's words. That's cruel. Dad, are we not family? And with that, she began to cry.
You only think about yourself, acting out of self-interest. You've belittled Johanna and now betrayed William. You might want my inheritance, but I've decided to leave most of it to Johanna, who has sincerely taken care of me and kept our home together.
Richard declared this in front of everyone. Soon after, William added,
Camilla, please sign here. I'll be filing for divorce immediately after this. And don't forget about the alimony.
Camilla, cornered by everyone, slammed the table.
Is it fun for all of you to gang up on me? What's wrong with loving someone I truly care about? I've always loved Johnny. You should be grateful that a dull man like you got to marry me and was about to have a family.
She yelled.
Is that all you have to say? Then sign quickly.
William remained calm throughout. He no longer seemed to regard Camilla as a fellow human. His look was akin to observing an animal.
If you divorce me, you'll never find another wife, William. Don't come regretting it later.
Camilla angrily signed the divorce papers and threw them at William. William filed the papers immediately, and they became strangers. The next day, just to be sure, a DNA test